Hello student, welcome to Manifest e-learning platform. My name is Wilson Andove and I'll be taking you through literature, specifically poetry. Now poetry is a very sweet genre or area in literature if you only understand it, if you only read more of it. So you need to look at a number of poems. Once you read more of those poems, you come to appreciate the beauty of poetry. So today, we are looking at poetry. And this has been a series of lessons. Poetry. I'm doing this series so that you can actually understand or appreciate poetry. So we shall be discussing a number of poems. And I hope by the end of that session, you'll have understood the essence and the beauty that is in poetry. So you are looking at poetry. For you to study a poem, the first thing you have to look at is the title of the poem. The title of the poem will always have a hint, will always have a guide, should point towards a particular direction. Now from that title, you will glean, you'll get an understanding of the poem. The title actually cannot give you the opposite of what is in the poem. Now once you look at the title, understand the wordings of the title. After that, you do the first reading. I've said, and I'll say this again, read through the poem twice. The first reading is just to give you a glimpse, an idea, a rough idea of what the poem is all about. It can be called skimming or scanning. Actually, it's skimming. Once you have done the first reading, now you have a rough idea of the poem. You do the second reading. Now, the second reading, you try to understand the poem. You can go line by line or stanza by stanza. As you understand that poem, get out some aspects of poetry, like stylistic devices used in the poem that we have discussed before, or we shall discuss later, the thematic concerns in that poem, and the usage of words. We might have some specific words that have been used in that poem to bring out the message of the poem. So look at specific words, what we call diction. Diction. It means choice of words. There are some words which carry the message of the poem. So look at the words, look at the poetic devices, look at the thematic concerns. And of course, don't forget the persona. And persona is the voice speaking in the poem. So roughly, that's how we analyze a poem. And I want us to look at a poem as a sample. Then from that, using that poem, we should be able to identify these features, okay? So here is a poem entitled Western Civilization. Now we have the title Western Civilization. What is Western? Western, from our history, actually means European, American, okay? That's our history, Western Civilization. West, it means European countries or American countries. We call that Western. Now, civilization means the growth of a country. When you are civilized, you have grown in terms of your thinking capacity. You think differently. It's like you are a modern person. You are a modern person. We say you are civilized. Okay? So you're looking at Western civilization, which means something that was gotten from the West countries, from the Western countries like Europe, and have been brought to maybe to Africa. So the poem says, sheets of tins nailed to posts, driven in the ground, make up the house. Some rugs complete the intimate landscape. The sun slanting through the cracks welcomes the owner. After 12 hours of slave labor, breaking rock, shifting rock, breaking rock, shifting rock, fair weather, wet weather, breaking rock, shifting rock. Old age comes early. A mat on dark nights is enough when it dies gratefully of hunger. Now that was the first reading. Now we're going to do the second reading. Sheets of tins nailed to posts, driven in the ground, make up the house. Look at the house. The house is made up of what? Sheets of tin nailed to post. This house is not concrete, no. Tin. So we have some posts, and then you have tin. Okay? Sheets of tin. Not even iron sheet, tin. Tin is a small size. Tin. So the tin, those sheets of tin, which have been driven to posts, they make up this man's house. So that's where he lives. That's where he lives. So he lives in a what? In a shanty. We call this a shanty. A shanty. It's not a house. A house made of tin is called a shanty. What we call mabati house. Shanty. Then, so this is where the man lives. Some rugs complete the intimate landscape. Now, in this house, we have rugs. 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 Complete, and we are told intimate landscape. You know the meaning of that intimate? It means something beautiful. Something that it's good to look at. And even the word landscape. And a long stretch of land. Landscape is something beautiful to look at. So we are wondering, when you have rugs in your house, is it something good to look at? No, it isn't. So these words actually are ironical in nature. Okay? It means they're stating the opposite. In fact, the poet here, who is Agostino Neto, is trying to make fun of this house. Trying to make fun. Okay? Hey, it's not something good to look at. Rugs, can they be something good to look at? No, he's making fun out of this house. Then you are told, the sun slanting through the cracks welcomes the owner. So in the evening, the sun slanting. So this house has what? Cracks. And the sun rays, they slant. When you're in the house, you can see the sun rays maybe on the wall there, okay? Because your house has what? Not your house, your shanty. Remember, we say it's a shanty, not a house. Your shanty has what? Has cracks. So in the evening, when you come back to this shanty that you call a house, you are very tired, you can see the sun rays that's slanting through the cracks. And you can see SS, we call that alliteration. Okay? We call this alliteration. Alliteration. Sun slanting. Call that alliteration. Welcomes the owner. After 12 hours of what? of slave labor. So this man has been working as a slave laborer, working for how long? For 12 hours. And what was he doing? He was breaking rock, shifting rock. Breaking rock, shifting rock. Look at the repetition. It's deliberate. As a slave labor, his work was to break rock. After breaking it, you shift it. You break again, you shift it. You break again, you shift it. Breaking rock, shifting rock. Breaking rock, shifting rock. Fair weather or wet weather. Whether it's good weather, sunshine, or it's raining, this man has to break rock. He's still working for 12 hours. Regardless of the weather conditions, the man has to work for 12 hours. Fair weather, wet weather. Because it's a what? It's a slave laborer. You can imagine if you are a slave, there's the master who is standing by, okay? Who is commanding you. You don't have time to breathe. And because of that, this man ages early. We are told old age comes early. Imagine, you work for 12 hours. When you go back to your little home, it's just a shanty. You're going to age early. A mat on dark night. He sleeps on a what? On a mat. There's no bed. On dark nights. It's enough when he dies. Get full of what? Of hunger. So this man dies of what? Hunger. I want you to imagine, student. You work so hard, yet there's no food for you to eat. You know, when you work so hard, your body needs a lot of energy. So you need to eat a lot. So this man works so hard, breaking rock, but he goes back to his little home. There's no food. He sleeps hungry. And he dies. Now look at what the poet says. Gratefully of hunger. Can you die gratefully? When you are grateful, it means you are happy. Okay? Maybe the persona is trying to sympathize with the man because he's suffering so much. So it's better for him to die. Okay? Better for this man to die because he's really suffering. Does not have a house, a good house. Does not even have a good place to sleep. Does not have good food, and is overworked. It's better for him to die. So that's the poem. Now, look at the title. The title said, Western Civilization. And I said, when you are civilized, you are modernized. Okay? So, do we see any form of civilization in this poem? No. In fact, we can say uncivilization. This poem is about slave labor. Okay? Slave labor. There's a person who is a slave labor. In this case, a black man. It's a black man. So we're talking about slavery. Okay? Slavery. A black man who is a slave laborer is overworked until he dies at a young age. Now, is that civilization? No. In fact, this poem is about colonialism. Colonialism, whereby the Western masters are oppressing the blacks by forcing them into slavery with hard labor. Slavery with hard labor and little or no basic amenities such as food, clothing, and shelter. So this is what the poem is all about. It's about colonialism. The Western masters are oppressing the blacks, okay? So is that civilization? No, it isn't. So the title is ironical. The title, what's irony? The title is ironical because there is no civilization in the poem. Any form of civilization in the poem. Okay? Instead, there is what? There is oppression. Instead, there is oppression. So the title is ironical. Now, there's a unique style used in this poem that we call repetition. Look at these words. Breaking rock, shifting rock. It's deliberate. This is a repetition. The purpose is to emphasize on the nature of the work. That this work, first of all, is monotonous. It's repetitive. Your work is to break and shift. You break and shift. For how long? For 12 hours. Okay? Yes. So we have used repetition here to emphasize on the nature of work. One, this work is monotonous. It's repetitive. And number two, it's hard labor. Because you are breaking rock and then you are shifting it. And if look at the effects of that, the man ages early and then he dies. Okay? Yes. So this is how the poem, that's the message of this poem. Now, you are the reader of this poem. What are your feelings towards this man? What are your feelings? If you are to look at this man, what are your feelings? I'm sure you feel sorry for him, okay? Don't you? You feel sorry for him, yes. Because he's really suffering. I also feel sorry for him. So when you feel sorry for a character, we say you are sympathetic. Sympathetic attitude, okay? Because he's suffering. He is undergoing untold suffering. Is undergoing untold suffering. Let me write this properly. He is undergoing untold suffering. Yes. Untold suffering. So you feel sorry for him, okay? And then, of course, the mood of this poem is a sorrowful mood or a sad mood, or you can say somber mood or sorrowful. Some people can say sad mood because this man is suffering so much and finally he dies. So that's the message, attitude, and the mood of the poem. So student, today we have looked at a sample poem and we have seen how you can study a poem. And up to that moment, we shall end today's lesson. Until next time, I've been your teacher, Wilson Andove. Thank you so much and be blessed.